This presentation is on the public's perception of the police by Jamie Dugan. The public and the police's perceptions differ when it comes to the use of force. 67% of officers reported that killings of Black men during police encounters can be described as isolated incidents rather than broader problems between Black men and the police, while only 39% of the public would agree. Also, for the first time in 27 years, the public's confidence in the police was below 50%, with only 48% of the public reporting that they have confidence in the police. Different factors can impact an individual's perception of the police. Previous research has focused on how factors such as race, political party, gender, education level, and age impact an individual's perception of the police. Participants who are younger, females, have lower levels of education, Black or African American, and individuals with prior criminal involvement all had the lowest levels of perceived police legitimacy or trust and effectiveness. Study conducted in 2019, 84% of Black adults and 63% of white adults reported that when dealing with the police, Blacks are generally treated less fairly than their white counterpart. Black adults were about 5 times more likely to report on the survey that they were unfairly stopped by the police because of their race or ethnicity. 44% of Black participants and 9% of white participants reported that they were unfairly stopped because of their race or ethnicity. 56% of Caucasians reported confidence in police, while only 19% of African Americans reported confidence in police, which is the largest gap ever reported. Republicans' confidence in police was reported to be 82%, while Democrats' confidence in police was 28%. 79% of Republicans reported that the police are doing an excellent job protecting people from crime, while only 53% of Democrats agree. 88% of white Democrats reported that Black people are treated less fairly than white people by the police, while only 43% of white Republicans agreed. In another study, 76% of white Republicans reported they feel police do an excellent job treating racial and ethnic groups equally, compared with 27% of white Democrats. For the criminal justice system to work as intended, it is important for all parties to participate. Citizens must participate in the system so that it can truly serve them. If citizens do not trust the police or do not see them as legitimate, they would be less likely to report crime and assist in investigations. It is important to review the public perception of the police and how different factors influence that, so the police know where they need to improve their community outreach to create a stronger relationship or image so that citizens continue to fulfill their obligations of assisting the police. The research question is, are there differences in perceptions of police between the following groups: male versus females, Democrats versus Republicans, Caucasians versus minorities, and urban versus rural residents? Cross-tabulations were done to compare the differences in perception of police between gender, political party, type of neighborhood, and race. Over 90 people were asked to complete a survey during a convenient sample at Tiffin University. Of the 90 asked, 44 completed the survey and signed the consent form. 41% of the participants in the study were female and 59% were male. 20.5% of the respondents were Republican, 47.7% were Democrat, and 31.8% were other. 29.5% of the participants were from rural neighborhoods, 29.5% were from urban neighborhoods, and 40.9% were from suburban neighborhoods. 61.4% were white, 29.5% were African American, 6.8% were Latino, and 2.3% were Middle Eastern. When asked if a police officer says it happened, then that is what really happened, many respondents disagreed. About 67% of Republicans agreed, 43% of Democrats agreed, and 0 people who identified their political party as other agreed. 16.7% of females agreed, and 46% of males agreed. The agreement rate between the neighborhoods was very similar. All neighborhoods were in between 30 to 40% agreement rates. 30% of white and Black respondents said that they agree that if the police say it happened, then that is what really happened. 67% of the Latino participants agreed, and 100% of the Middle Eastern participants agreed. When asked if local law enforcement treats people fairly, 100% of the Republicans agreed, 48% of Democrats agreed, and 57% of people who identified as other agreed. 50% of females agreed and 69% of males agreed. For neighborhoods, 78% of people in suburban neighborhoods believe that local law enforcement treats people fairly, while only 50% in rural and 46% in urban neighborhoods agreed. 100% of Middle Eastern and Latino participants agreed. 67% of white and 39% of Black respondents said that they agreed. Upon all groups, most respondents answered the same, that if they were a victim of a crime, they would report it to the police. Respondents who are African American, Latino, or from urban neighborhoods are most likely to disagree that local law enforcement attempts to develop relationships with community members, organizations, and groups. African American respondents and respondents in urban neighborhoods were less likely to agree that there is a strong enough police presence in their community versus the other groups. More than half of the respondents disagreed that local law enforcement treats people equally based on certain attributes such as race, age, gender, nationality, sexual orientation, disability, etc. The largest difference was in between the genders. 62% of males agreed, while only 22% of females agreed. There was also a large gap between the political parties. 67% of Republicans agreed, while only 43% of Democrats and 36% of those who identified as other agreed. Out of all groups, individuals identifying their political party as other and individuals residing in urban neighborhoods were the least likely to agree that local law enforcement is effective at preventing crime. 50% of other political parties agreed, and 46% of those living in urban neighborhoods agreed. Most respondents reported that they agree that police are hardworking. African Americans and individuals residing in urban neighborhoods were the least likely groups to agree that local law enforcement is addressing the problems that concern them. African Americans and individuals residing in urban neighborhoods were least likely to agree that the police will be there when they will need them. Most respondents agreed that when interacting with local law enforcement that they are respectful. 100% of Latino and Middle Eastern respondents agreed, while only 85% of white respondents and 62% of Black respondents agreed. 92% of respondents in rural neighborhoods and 83% in suburban neighborhoods agreed, while only 62% in urban neighborhoods agreed. 61% of all respondents agreed that calling the police will make a situation better. The groups that were most likely to disagree with this statement were individuals from urban neighborhoods and individuals identifying as Latino. The most likely groups to agree were Republicans, Middle Eastern, and individuals in rural neighborhoods. Most respondents agreed that police officers are friendly. Most respondents agreed that the police were hardworking and that they would report it if they were a victim of a crime. More than half of the respondents disagreed with the statement. If the police said that something happened, then that is what happened. More than half of the respondents also disagreed that police treat people equally based on race, age, sexual orientation, etc. African American, Latino, and urban respondents were most likely to disagree that local law enforcement attempts to develop relationships with their community. The same groups also were least likely to believe that the police would be there when they need them. Urban and Latino residents were also less likely to believe that calling the police would make a situation better. I believe that in order to have more effective police forces, the community has to believe in the police and be willing to participate in the process. Future research would benefit from focusing on how community outreach from the police impacts the public's perception of them. Local law enforcement agencies seeking to strengthen their community relations should focus on the groups that report having less trust or a diminished perception of the police.